Nothing looks broken on the day the money moves, the code ships, or the identity changes. The certificate is valid. The API call is authorized. The update is signed. The detector that was trained on strangers blesses the session because the speaker is already on the list. They did not break in. They used the key you issued. The interesting question is not whether the speaker was enrolled. The interesting question is whether this use still matches the work you thought you bought. Third-party risk management, TPRM, has to decide whether a grant is being used as intended. A deny event is one input to that decision. It is not the decision, because the grant may already be allowed. The certificate is valid. The update is signed. The support role is authorized. The payment order is protocol correct. The system is doing the job it was built to do for a speaker it already accepts. The failure is not a missing firewall rule. The failure is a grant that was larger, longer, or less watched than the work required. Abuse is the wrong word if it suggests a smashed lock. The lock opened because it was told to open. A break-in leaves a scar a detector can name. Trust abuse leaves a session that looks like Tuesday. The interesting question is not whether the speaker was enrolled. The interesting question is whether this use still matches the work you thought you bought. Valid and stolen looking are different pictures. Stolen looking is a forced password, a malformed packet, a login from a country the user has never visited, or a tool that trips an allow list. Valid is an unexpired certificate, a scoped token, a signed artifact, or a support role that identity and access management already permits. The first picture trains most detectors. The second picture is how a vendor path actually moves money, code, or identity. A program that only hunts stolen-looking events will keep blessing the valid ones. 3 pictures hold the same fact, and none of them looks like a break-in. A signed update is the software picture. Code signing exists so a customer can install an update without rebuilding it from source. That design is correct. It becomes a path when the signing key or the build is taken, because every downstream control was trained to say yes. The SolarWinds update path showed the public version of that fact. A trusted signature became the distribution channel. The file did not look stolen. The file looked recommended. An authorized support role is the human picture. A help desk must reset a lockout. A vendor engineer must join a production bridge. Those roles are not defects. They are work. The session is permitted. The harm arrives when the role is broader than the ticket, when the laptop is thinner than the privilege, or when the grant outlasts the project. Minimum privilege is the name for keeping the grant as small as the task. A legitimate path that is not minimum is still a path. A protocol-correct payment is the money picture. A rail is built to settle fast when a licensed speaker sends a well-formed order. The rail is not built to second-guess a certificate it already trusts. If the order is shaped correctly, and the certificate is the institution's certificate, settlement proceeds. The detector that only watches for malformed messages will miss the one that is perfect. Those 3 pictures sit on one table because they share a shape. A signed update looks published. An authorized support role looks like a ticket. A protocol-correct payment looks like settlement. Allow would have said yes to every row. The signed update looked published, so the installer treated a trusted signature as the next recommended file. Allow or deny is the wrong instrument for that class of event, because the event is already allowed. Binary allow or deny asks whether the speaker is on the list. Watching authorized behavior asks whether this speaker, at this hour, for this amount, toward this destination, still matches the work you thought you bought. The first question is enrollment. The second question is use. Trust abuse hides in use. A program that only enrolls vendors will keep blessing the session. Enrollment is a door list. Use is a film of what walked through. Enrollment is the act of putting a speaker on the list the control already trusts. A certificate ceremony enrolls a speaker. An OAuth grant enrolls a token. A support ticket enrolls a role. Enrollment answers fitness to speak. It does not answer whether today's speech still matches the job. Authorized intent is the missing cell. Intent asks whether this use is the work you bought. A token that can post a payment was authorized when it was issued. A 3 a.m. burst toward a new destination may still be authorized under the protocol and wrong under the job. Binary allow or deny cannot see that cell. Behavior can, but only if someone wrote down what honest work looks like before the week goes bad. Detection has to be behavioral because the protocol will not scream. Behavioral means you compare this session to the pattern of honest work. Who usually speaks, from where, at what hour, for what amount, toward which destination, and how often. A support role that resets one lockout at noon is work. The same role that resets 40 lockouts at 3 in the morning is a different film. A payment that matches last month's destinations is work. A payment that empties a reserve account toward a new destination is a different film. Those watches sit on one table. Speaker, is this the machine or the person you enrolled for this task? Hour, does this time match the work? Amount, does this volume match the job you bought? Destination, is this the account, the build, or the mailbox you expected? Rate, is this the usual pace or a burst the work never needed? Binary allow or deny has one cell. Behavior has 5. Watching requires 3 things the deny list never asked for. The grant has to sit inside identity and access management, which is the system that grants, reviews, and revokes keys. The logs have to be usable, which means an investigator can see speaker, hour, amount, destination, and rate without begging the vendor for a screenshot. Someone has to own the film, which means a named desk reviews the unusual session the same week it happens, not the next anniversary. The folder comforts the wrong people. A questionnaire can be current. A written contract can be signed. The speaker can be enrolled. Those artifacts can all be true on the day a valid grant does harm. The artifacts answer whether a process existed. They do not answer whether anyone was watching what the grant did after it was issued. Regulators and customers do not split the blame between the brand and the speaker who held a valid key. Treat the vendor grant as an extension of your own identity store. A session you would watch on an internal admin should be watched on a vendor admin. Valid is not the same as stolen looking. A signed update, an authorized support role, and a protocol correct payment all look like Tuesday. Binary allow or deny asks whether the speaker is enrolled. Behavioral detection asks whether this use still matches the work. Watch speaker, hour, amount, destination, and rate. Allow would have blessed the signed update because the file looked published. Thank you.